Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by fullpresscoverage.com. Check out their website for this podcast, other great podcasts, lots of great articles, and you can find our podcast wherever podcasts are found. I'm saying the word podcast a lot. You can also find the video version of this show on YouTube, youtube.com/JetStryer. We always tweet out the links to whether it's the video or the audio presentation at JohnSap25 on Twitter or at JetStryer also on Twitter. Sap, you're a big reader, right? You are. The other day we talked about an article you found in Forbes. Today, and a lovely article that you read in the New Yorker. What are you reading? Are you the most intelligent person in the world? You're reading Forbes. You're reading the New Yorker. What else are you reading? Scientific
No, I'm more
American?
or less. I'm the Atlantic. You don't know what I'm going to read. I don't drink. No, I don't drink. I don't read novels because they're just like I don't have the patience for that. But I do
eyesight,
love, right? or the eyesight to do that either. Yeah, I gotta be careful with that stuff. But I do like reading magazine pieces, long form journalism. That's why I always loved when Bill Simmons was with ESPN. All the times it would be like
real long form journalism.
Real long form. And it was like, okay, I'm going to read this on the train ride to work. Well, it was 5 days of that before I finished some of Bill Simmons stuff. And it was like, okay, finally I'm finished. And what the hell did I read yesterday? Because I already forgot. But there's a cover of the New Yorker. And the New Yorker is great, with their cartoons and their drawings, their artwork. It's
very
a really cool magazine. Very much so, yes. I love the New Yorker. I really feel I could have fit in New York. It's more of an Italian city than Boston is. Boston's an Irish city. Although one time I was in New York and I was scheduled to leave at 4:00 in the afternoon. I woke up in the morning. I was like, I got to get out of here. It was like the garbage was building up. It smelled. It was hot. And I took an earlier train.
It's my least favorite city. I can't stand it.
Probably my favorite. Really, I love Washington, D.C. I do like Washington. You've traveled more than I have. I traveled a lot when I was really young. But I love Washington, D.C.
But no, I hate New York.
Really? Okay.
Really, I can't stand it. Okay. The trash, like you mentioned, it's just there's garbage all over. It's so crowded. Like you don't, and maybe now post-pandemic, it won't be as crowded. But I feel like I never have room to stick out my arms. And also, you can never see the sky or the sun.
No.
I hate that.
No, you can't. I mean, the skyscrapers are just incredible. I mean, you think you have a impressive skyline in Boston or anywhere else, and then you go to New York and go, this is ridiculous. Well, I love New York City, the restaurants, the culture, all of that stuff. But anyway, the New Yorker magazine has a cover which is titled Hoop Dreams in New York, and it's got 3 Nets and 2 Knicks on the cover. It's got Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden in the forefront, pretty good size. And behind them, much smaller, are the 2 Knicks, Julius Randle and R.J. Barrett. And it's
here it is right here in case. Oh, no, it's way too far. I don't know what I was attempting to do here. That's, you know what?
I'll tweet it out. I'll tweet it out.
Bad effort by me, Seth. I didn't realize how far away my camera was.
You'd have to be Ted Williams circa 1939 to read that thing. Really, I'm not going to see it. I'm like,
poor try by me,
Mr.
Shame
Magoo,
on me.
We'll tweet it out. But it's pretty interesting because the Knicks have been phenomenal this year, right? Here they are as right now the 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, and I think people are kind of rooting for them, other than the fact that James Dolan's their owner, who's a complete asshole,
and playing better as the season's progressed.
They have. You like Tom Thibodeau, especially if you're a Celtic fan. He was here when they won the championship in 2008. He's kind of a hard-ass coach. Kind of feels to the Knicks what Tom Coughlin was to the Giants. Like, here comes...
that's a good comparison. I like that.
This new Marshall in town, and, he's actually become the star of the team in some sense. Julius Randle's the all-star. R.J. Barrett's getting better, it seems like, every week. And everybody's rooting for Derrick Rose, but it's a great story. So now the Knicks actually have a better record than the Celtics. They have a better record than the Lakers, which is kind of amazing. But they've been very, very impressive this year and a lot of traction in New York. But they've been overshadowed because the Brooklyn Nets have 3 all-time great players, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving. As great as Julius Randle is, he would be the 4th best player on the Nets. He's not as good as those aforementioned 3 players. And I think R.J. Barrett's going to be a nice player. But that's more about team and culture and coaching, and it's a wonderful story. But the cover shows the three Nets much bigger than the two Knicks. It's almost like to say, yeah, revival of basketball in New York, but it's more about the Brooklyn Nets than the New York Knicks. So I thought that was kind of funny because it's still a Knicks town. No matter what the Nets do, it's still a Knicks town. The Knicks are still the most valuable franchise in the NBA. And the interesting thing, Jed, is the Brooklyn Nets, as they are now known, have had this nomadic existence since the 60s. They were very good in the ABA. They were first the New York Americans, became the New York Nets. They were absorbed by the NBA in 1976. The following year, they became the New Jersey Nets. They played at Rutgers in front of a 6,000 seat capacity. And then they built Brendan Byrne Arena, which was next to Giant Stadium, Route 16, exit 16W off the New Jersey Turnpike. So they were like this team that, what are they? They were the New York Nets. Now they're the New Jersey Nets. They're playing where the Giants play in New Jersey. And since they've been in the NBA, Jet, they've had one season where they've won 50 games. They've been to two finals, back-to-back years. They lost to the Lakers in 2002 and then the Spurs in 2003. 150-win season. And now they're the Brooklyn Nets, right? I mean, it's like, so this would be akin to, let's say the Celtics, there was another NBA team here. You got the Boston Celtics, so they're like the Knicks. They're the team with the legendary franchise, although the Knicks have won 2 titles. But let's just, say for that argument that they're a big franchise in the NBA. And there was a second team in Dorchester. Like, okay, there's the Boston Celtics and the Dorchester Townies or whatever. Most of the people in this region are Celtic fans. Maybe a few people in Dorchester would migrate to the Dorchester Townies, but that's what the Dorchester Townies would be facing, even if the Dorchester Townies were better than the Celtics, because the Celtics are the I guess legendary franchise.
If like the Clippers played in like Anaheim, maybe that would be something similar.
Yeah,
right?
They share the building with the Lakers.
I don't think Anaheim's as hip as Brooklyn.
No,
unless you're a Disney guy like me.
Right, and Brooklyn is by itself the 4th largest city in the country. Like if you just the borough of Brooklyn has close to 3 million people. It's actually only surpassed by New York, LA, and Chicago. So it's not like Staten Island's the smallest of the boroughs with about 500,000 people. But you get my point on that.
Sep, it's a 5-mile difference between Madison Square Garden and the Barclays Center. They're just 5 miles apart.
Yeah, and then of course a ton of people live between those two places because it's New York City.
Millions.
But yeah, I mean, but the Brooklyn Nets have not exactly been the model franchise. Danny Ainge pants them, sent them Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and Jason Terry. We don't want to forget about him for all those first-round picks, which turned out to be Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So that the Nets did nothing right. The Celtics did everything right, but the Nets were able to get Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving to sign 2 max
which makes
contracts.
It hurt all that much more for the Celtics.
Now, if the Knicks had been able to sign those 2 guys, now you're on to something there, right?
Which they thought they were. I mean, they did.
Yeah.
But they were so poorly run. And listen, with Brooklyn, all it took was basically 1 or 2 years of competence to get them to the level where Kyrie and Kevin Durant were interested. It's not like it's been a prime destination. And even when the Nets started out and moved to Brooklyn and they got the new owner from Russia, Prokhorov, and they have Jay-Z was part of the ownership group, and they have this Barclays Center. I've never been, but I've heard it's amazing and it looks amazing on TV. All this cool stuff, and yet they still weren't able to attract people until last offseason when they signed, or 2 off seasons ago when they signed Durant and Kyrie, and it took a couple of years of them just being competent. And I think that's what people have been waiting for the Knicks is just be competent. Don't be so embarrassingly buffoonish. And I'll want, as a star player, I'll want to come to you because it's New York and they have a great fan base and, you get to play in Madison Square Garden. But the Knicks have been incapable of doing that. And this is really the first year that they look pretty competent, at least like they're building a culture. Even when Carmelo was there, it didn't seem like it seemed like they were flying by the seat of their pants. Like they had this really good player, but no one really wanted to play with him. They didn't surround him with complementary talent. Everybody seemed pissed off all the time. J.R. Smith was punching Jason Terry in the face during playoff game. Like it didn't make sense. It wasn't working. I don't think it was attractive for a lot of people. This actually looks like it's a team that's like trying to play good, competitive, hard basketball. And it's a very similar in a lot of ways to what the Nets were 2 years
exactly.
ago.
Yep. Building it through culture, right? Of course, Durant and Kyrie went in there and kind of pissed on that culture, right? Because the coach got fired.
Gone now. The culture's
gone
nice
now.
So you're trying to win a championship.
And you know what? Give me talent over culture. That's what wins in the NBA. Give me Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden. We'll try to figure this out. I mean, what the Nets were a couple of years ago was a pesky team in the Eastern Conference, the same year that the Clippers were a pesky team in the Western Conference and took Golden State to 6 games in the first round. But, again, give me Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and Rajon Rondo, and we'll see what they can do in the postseason over that culture. I get that. This isn't football, and heck, even in football, you need a star quarterback. You can have all the culture you want. If you don't have an elite quarterback, you're not winning. So I think that the New York dynamic is interesting. Again, they have multiple teams in multiple sports. I mean, in hockey, you can make a case that there's 3 of them. You got the New Jersey Devils, who aren't playing far from New York City. You've got the Islanders and, of course, the Rangers. It's a Rangers town. No one disputes that.
Don't the Islanders play at Barclays now, too? Are they split between Nassau?
No, I think they split between 2 places, and they're building a brand new arena. And then you got the Devils also. You got the Jets and the Giants. It's a Giants town more than it is a Jets town.
Mets and Yankees. I mean, we all know where that one goes.
Town. The only thing is, before the Mets became the Mets in 1962, I think it was, New York had 3 baseball teams: the New York Giants, the Brooklyn Dodgers, the New York Yankees. 2 of those teams were in the National League. So New York embraces the National League as much, if not more, than the American League. But you know what? If you're in the same town as the New York Yankees, I don't care who you are in any sport, you're the second most popular team in town. It's the goddamn New York Yankees. So maybe we've got a really cool rivalry starting here. Obviously, Brooklyn's got the elite talent, but New York, the Knicks, actually are the team you want to root for if you're into culture and overachieving and, not just buying a team.
Honestly, Sepp, I don't really know what it would be like for the Knicks to have a good team, or for the Knicks to have like a competitive rivalry where 2 teams are competing for a championship, because, I'm almost 32. I've never experienced it. I mean, they had that nice team in the lockout year that went to the finals, but they weren't like consistently, threatening. They were up against Jordan's Bulls all the time, and he was, torturing them. So I don't know what it's like, and nobody that's been born post the 1980 has really know what it's like for to have a Knicks team that's like has a championship level competitive rivalry with somebody, let alone somebody in their own backyard. So I think it would be awesome, and I think people would get really behind it. But like, that's just speculation, because they've never been good.
You were born, 1989? So You were 10 years old when they went to that finals and lost to San Antonio. I believe they were swept in that strike-shortened season.
And was it like Knicks finals fever? I don't remember.
It was a surprise that they were there. Patrick Ewing wasn't even on the team anymore. He'd already moved on to, I believe, Seattle or Orlando or wherever he finished his career. I think he played in both of those cities, which was just weird seeing Patrick Ewing not in a Knicks uniform.
Hakeem played for the Raptors.
Yeah, sometimes you can't get these things out of your head. You really wish you could get that out of your head. Hakeem in Toronto, that was just a bizarre sighting, especially with those kind of crazy uniforms, which I'm sure you like because you like dinosaurs.
Yes, the purple dinosaur uniforms.
Oh, iconic. Yeah, you must love those. I'm surprised that you don't have that in your background here on the podcast. But 5 years before that, they did make the finals, and they lost to the Rockets in 7 games. But since 99, they've won 1 playoff series. That was in 2013 against the Celtics. So they've been irrelevant for 20 years. That's why I always push back when people say the league is much better when the Knicks are great. Well, they haven't been great for a long time. Yeah, I mean, it's an outdated take. Well, I'm surprised they didn't really. Well, they probably went after him in 2010, and he probably met James Dolan and said, "This guy's a boob. I've just left the boob in the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm not going to go to New York and meet another boob. I'll go play for Pat Riley."
Please, in Miami. Dolan makes the Dan Gilbert look like a Mensa member.
Yeah, it looks like Bob Kraft is an owner,
Yeah.
right? So they've really not been relevant. I'd like to see them back. The arena's, the world's most famous arena. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. It's a good way to sell it. It's like, Fenway Park, America's most beloved ballpark. I call it America's most uncomfortable ballpark because you can't fit in the goddamn
Very
seats.
true.
Very true. Yeah, I mean, you're not a big guy, so you
No,
can
it sucks. It sucks going to a game at Fenway. It's not enjoyable in any respect.
No, and half the seats or three-quarters of the seats aren't even really looking at the field. I mean, I get a sore neck if you're anywhere down the first base line. You kind of have to keep turning your head to watch the play way to the left.
It'd be cool if, like, the Globe Theater that Shakespeare built, still existed today, but I wouldn't want to sit for a 4-hour play.
No, exactly.
Something that was built that long ago.
Give me something comfortable where I can stretch my legs. I'm not that tall, but, I can, expand my considerable ass. I need a big, wide seat. But it's cool that they're back. Look, all things being equal, the Knicks are much more popular than the Nets. I wonder, in New York, the fans are pretty, entrenched in picking one of the teams. Like, I have friends from New York, and it doesn't have to be the same.
You're not flopping.
No one's flopping. This isn't Hillary Clinton, who, was wearing a Cubs cap and then a Red Sox cap, and I like both teams. Or Bill Richardson, who ran for president, who claims he was a Red Sox fan and a Yankees fan. You can't be a Red Sox fan and a Yankees fan. So it doesn't work that way. I could probably pull that off because I just root for players. But in New York, like, I have friends, they're a Ranger, Knick, Giants, Mets. That's their foursome. Another person would pick 4 other teams. It doesn't always have to be the same. The traditional teams, obviously, are you'd be the Yankees, Rangers, Knicks, and Giants. Those are the established teams.
Right.
But you could make any combination you want. So, but
the worst combination is the Mets, Knicks, Jets is a devastating combination of ineptitude.
Yeah, because then you're just picking bad teams at that point. Which there's a lot of bad teams in New York. Let's not mince words about that. I mean, there's the Yankees that are always relevant, and then the Giants and Jets haven't been relevant for nearly a decade, and you can go from there. But this is kind of fun. I'd love to see this as a second-round matchup between the Knicks and the Nets. The Nets would win in 5 games, but I think the Knicks would really push them in terms of just being physical with them. Well coached with Tom Thibodeau, and they're an aggressive defensive team. But in the end, talent wins out. But I just thought that this was a pretty cool cover because it shows, okay, New York basketball is coming back, but it's coming back stronger in Brooklyn with these 3 great players. And the Knicks are kind of like the cool underdog, even though their franchise is the most valued in the NBA.
Right. And, by the time the Knicks sort of get that star or a couple stars that they're looking for, I'm not sure what the situation in Brooklyn's going to be. I don't know that those guys are there for the long haul, especially if they lose. I really don't think they're there for the long haul. So I don't know that there's ever going to be a rivalry where they're both good, really good, like championship level good at the same time. Maybe I kind of have my doubts because of where the Nets are in such win now mode. I mean, they're like them and the Lakers are the 2 ultimate win now teams. Maybe the Lakers slightly more because LeBron's a little bit older. But the Lakers aren't as desperate to win because, they have 17 world championships and LeBron has won a bunch of titles already. The Nets, I feel like they are a little bit more desperate. The Knicks, if they're playing this to an intelligent degree, they don't need to say we need to win a title in the next 2-3 years. They could build it slower, a little bit more organically and wait. So are these 2 teams going to be at the same level, which is a championship level in the next 3 to 5 years? I'd guess the Knicks will probably be better off in about 5 years' time if I had to put money on it. I mean, what do you think, Sam?
Yeah, because Brooklyn has no draft capital, right? They sent it all to get James Harden. They didn't have draft capital, though, for half a dozen years to get Garnett and Pierce, and somehow they rebounded. Because, what
they
the
were
league's going to continue.
For those years, though.
They really were. Then they built up slowly, and then they were able to get Garnett and Kyrie Irving. And you know what? In 5 years, there'll be maybe no players in the league quite like Kevin Durant anymore, but, there'll be high-level superstars that maybe want to go to Brooklyn because it is a cool place to live. The Knicks would be smart to keep James Dolan out of any negotiations, like just, treat him like the crazy uncle in the basement. Like, don't let him meet anybody.
Count your money. Just, count your money.
Stay out of it. Make plenty of money. Let Leon Rose handle the basketball side of things, and Tom Thibodeau is the coach. Although Thibodeau's a guy, I don't know if he's really a draw for high-level players. I mean, I know Jimmy Butler liked playing with him before him, but Jimmy Butler's kind of a unique star. I wouldn't even call Jimmy Butler a superstar. Could you picture Kyrie Irving playing for Tom Thibodeau? That would be an odd mix.
No, I do also. I'm glad you mentioned Kyrie Irving because on the cover of this New Yorker that you're going to tweet out, he is the only person who has the ball in his hands, which I think is very apropos. He
likes his ball and he's going to go home with it.
Yeah.
No, it's great to see it, and again, how the Knicks have done it, but how do they attract a superstar? Like I said, Tom Thibodeau is not the draw that, say, Pat Riley was in Miami, even though Riley wasn't coaching the Heat anymore.
Well, do you need the person to be the draw, or is the competency of the organization based in New York City and playing in Madison Square Garden, is that enough of a draw?
But see, Jet, these guys can make money playing anywhere. I mean, Russell Westbrook.
Then why was Brooklyn a draw?
Because they came together.
Yeah, but why did they pick Brooklyn? There are other teams with cap space.
I think it was Kyrie Irving was the driving force there. He grew up a Nets fan, which makes sense. Kyrie Irving would grow up a Nets fan. And again, when he was starting to cut his teeth playing basketball, the Nets went to back-to-back finals. I don't even know who Kyrie Irving's favorite player was. I think it was Kobe Bryant. So in that Scalabrine.
Scal on those Nets
Scalabrine,
teams.
Yeah, who knows? I don't even know how to get into Kyrie Irving's head, nor do I want to try. But in the 2002 finals, when Kyrie was 9 or 10, Kobe Bryant was going against the Nets. Who the hell was he rooting for? With Kyrie, probably denied the series existed. So, I think that's what you're going to have to work your way through here. Yeah, it's New York can be an appealing place, but players for the most part want to go to Miami, Southern California because of the weather. That's a big thing. Half the league lives in LA in the off season, right? So that's a big
you're right
draw.
that the endorsement thing has changed in that.
Yeah, Russell
doesn't really matter where you are.
He played in Oklahoma City. Like, does that matter? I mean,
suddenly the weather's become more of a draw.
It's not baseball. Baseball is a regional sport. Hockey's a regional sport. In the NFL, I mean, Aaron Rodgers has played his career in Green Bay, which is the size of Framingham. He's one of the 3 biggest stars in the sport with Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. And Mahomes plays in Kansas City, which is a small market, and Tampa's not a great market either. So your 3 biggest stars play in 3 of the smaller markets in the sport. So you could do that in basketball as well because it's a national sport.
Right.
LeBron played 11 years in Cleveland. Did that hurt
Durant was a huge megastar in Oklahoma City.
They loved him. Yeah, so it's about sneaker sales, and kids here love players in other locations. I mean, all the young kids love Steph Curry. Steph Curry could play with an expansion team. He's still going to be one of the most popular players in the league.
So you're thinking with the Brooklyn thing, it was more Kyrie than the actual location of Brooklyn, because they obviously, it's not like they had a player or coach. I mean, they ran the coach out in less than a year. So it wasn't that.
No, I think it was Kyrie was the driving force, because Kyrie and Durant have this I would say a very close relationship, because I think they kind of understand each other, which is kind of frightening. And I think that in that relationship that Kyrie is more of the alpha than Durant. And I think Kyrie said, remember him at the All-Star break in 2019, 2 max contracts, and Durant was, okay, that sounds good. Durant's pretty easy guy to probably convince to go play somewhere. Durant just likes to play basketball, and everything else kind of falls into place. Kyrie is a little bit more work on and off the court. So I think that's probably what happened. And once they're there, James Harden wants out of Houston. He's like, this is the best place for me. Let me go to Brooklyn and try to win a title.
So if they're not necessarily the draw because the landscape has changed in basketball where you don't need to go there, in order for the Knicks to get good, do they just need to stay this course and maybe get lucky in the draft? Or is there going to be a star who says, I really want to play in New York?
There's one guy that I think could go there, and it's Zion Williamson, because he played at Madison Square Garden a couple weeks ago.
We're talking a ways away for that.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's in his second year. He can't make money going elsewhere after his 4th year. He would make more money staying in New Orleans. But doesn't Zion make so much money with his sneaker deals, et cetera, that he could
no
potentially?
No one's ever declined that rookie max
I know.
extension. It's never happened before.
No, I know.
And it reverts into, if you decline it, it's a 1-year restricted free agency. So obviously the Pelicans would match. So we're looking at least
5 years away,
4 or 5 years away at the bare minimum.
You know what they could do? You know what could happen is just keep Stan Van Gundy as coach for another year, and by then I think Zion may request a trade or demand a trade and say, "Let me get the hell out of this place." Maybe that's what it would take with Zion. I'm sure Zion wanted the Knicks to win that draft lottery, and just think what that would have done for the league to bring Zion to New York.
Yeah, he definitely did.
He embraces Madison Square Garden. He had a huge smile on his face. He normally does. He's just such a likable guy. But he was like, "I love playing here. Outside of New Orleans, it's my favorite place to play." When in truth, it's his favorite place to play.
I agree with you, Sepp, that he could certainly he might find his way to New York, but it's going to be a while. So, and I don't think fans are content to have New York just revert back to being a crap team. So between now and when Zion becomes available in 5 years, 6 years time, is there any viable path for the Knicks to become a championship?
It'd be free agency, and you have to look at who the free agents are this offseason. I mean, 2 years ago, it was just a bevy of free agents. It was incredible when you had Durant and Kyrie Irving and a bunch of other great players. Remember that day when the off season or the start of the year opened, as I stumble along here, but it was like every 5 minutes someone was signing. I remember we were texting going, "Holy crap, this is happening." And Kyrie signed with Brooklyn, and then Kemba Walker signed with the Celtics, and Durant was already signing with Brooklyn. It was just like, 8 All-Stars changed teams that day. I don't know who's available in free agency now. And the thing is, you don't want to overspend for second or third tier free agents.
Right.
I think they did with Julius Randle, but it worked. Like, I remember that in that free agency period when the Knicks signed like 9 power forwards.
Yes.
And I'm like, what the hell are they doing? And then Julius Randle, that's a bargain.
I guess if you just keep throwing, darts at the same thing, one of them will end up working out and end up working out like gangbusters.
The Detroit Lions drafted wide receivers with their first pick in 3 consecutive drafts. They're like, we got to get one of these right. And
they did. Calvin Johnson.
Yeah, pretty good.
That ended up being right. Charles Rogers, Mike Williams, not so much. See, I remember who they were, too.
Yeah, just keep drafting wide receivers. We'll get one of them. Apparently, Green Bay likes drafting quarterbacks, even though they don't need to.
Yeah, that's good. And Aaron Rodgers is very happy about it. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. And I listen, as a basketball fan, I'd love to see like a true New York rivalry. This isn't really a rivalry because, listen, the Knicks are fun. Nets will blow their doors off. Just the talent discrepancy is way too big. But maybe in the near future, it will be the Nets that are the scrappy team again, or not particularly good, and it'll be the Knicks that are good. I could totally see it that way. I don't think this trio is long for the Nets, one way or the other. If they win, they don't win. I don't think they're there for the next 10 years.
I'd say 3 years max. This year and 2 more. If they win even a championship or 2, Durant will go elsewhere. Look, we thought he'd just stay in Golden State forever.
Would have been easy to do that.
After 3 years, he said it would have. I mean, if he didn't get hurt in the 2019 finals, they win that series. They three-peat, and at that point,
probably.
But from what we understand, is he had already decided he was going to move on. He seems like a guy that sometimes gets restless, and people wear on him. I think Draymond Green probably started to wear on him, and even Steve Kerr at some point. So he's like, "Let me go elsewhere." And who knows? In 3 years, he and Kyrie could go form a partnership in some other place, and who knows what the skill level will be at that point. I see Durant aging quite well. I mean, I could see him scoring 25 points at 40 years old.
If he wants to keep playing or not. Right. I don't think the skill will be the issue. I think it'll be him personally saying, I don't want to play anymore.
And the injuries just build up to the point where I'm tired of rehabbing. Let me just, it turns into Andrew Luck, who says, I just don't want to do this anymore.
Right. So, we'll see. And with Durant too, again, he's already won a couple titles. He's won an MVP. He's, there's at this point, what he's going to, think at some point in his career, what more do I have really to accomplish? Right. He's not really chasing anything. So we'll see. But I do think it is an interesting story, and it is a interesting cover to be on the New Yorker, your favorite magazine, Sap. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out with the Knicks and the Nets. I would love to see them play in the second round. I think that would be really fun. I don't think it would be particularly competitive, but it would be nice to get some juice going in terms of a backyard rivalry, or the Subway Series, as they called it with the Yankees and the Mets when they played in the World Series. So that's going to do it, Sap, for this edition of the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Make sure you check us out wherever podcasts are found, on fullpresscoverage.com, on iTunes. Just type in the full name. You can also find us on YouTube at my YouTube page, youtube.com/JetStrier, JETSTRIAR. Jet Strier is also my Twitter handle. Saps is John Sap25, JOHNSAP25. And we're going to be back on Friday with a new edition of the podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about some coaches who might be in the hot seat, depending on the playoff success or lack thereof of their teams. Let you know who those guys are, and we'll continue to look ahead as the postseason is coming really, really close. So we'll keep you updated on everything going on there. And thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you on Friday. Take care.